and Gimel Amud Aleph. Really in the middle of the page, a little under the center of the page. Amar Rab Tanchem. It's going to be Chagigah Barag Leachas. If you have the traditional Gemara, it's right across from the Tosfos that says Cheresh. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. And the schus of our learning we should see the Beis Hamikdash immediately. We have four shleima for all those that need. Yechilnas ben Sarah and David Alevi ben Menachem Lester, Avram Rafal ben Sarah, and Asher Anshel Alevi ben Miriam Edel, Sarah Baslini. And for the safety of the Jews in Ukraine. Okay. So we have good news. So Amar Rab Tanchem says, Chagigah Barag Leachas Patim min Ariyah. Someone that's lame in 1 foot, he limps. In Yiddish, hinkedicker. He limps. He's exempt from going to the Beis Hamikdash and from sending the sacrifice. Shenemar Regalim says, Shalish Regalim Tachigli Bashana. You should celebrate three years, but the word that three festivals, but the word that's used for that is Regalim. Kumar says 1 second. Baragalim ni bayale pratla balekabin. Balekabin, good morning. Balekabin are people that have a fake, a prosthetic leg or foot. It's a kav. It's like they take a block of wood, they make an indent for the stub of the knee, whatever, the upper leg to go into it. So it's really coming to exclude something much worse than just someone that limps. Someone that actually has a prosthetic leg, he's the one that's exempt. Limping, I don't know about that. So it says, well, hahum mipa'amim nafka. We know already that Bali Kabim are exempt because of the word pa'amim. It says, shalish pa'amim bashana yirakol zchurcha. And what does pa'amim mean? Titania, pa'amim, ein pa'amim ela regalim, ela raglayim. Pa'amim means feet. Interesting. It says shalish regalim and it says shalish pa'amim. Both of them mean feet. Now they mean times, 3 times a year, but they're both synonyms for the feet. Its pasuk says, Termisena ragel, trampled with a foot. Raglayani, the feet of a poor. Pami dalim, the feet of the dalim, which is also footsteps of the dalim, also the poor. So we see that pa'ame or pa'amim means feet. V'aimer, the pasuk also says, Mayafu pamayach bana'olim bas nadiv. How beautiful are your steps, or are your feet? Bana'olim is in sandals. Bas nadiv, the daughter of princes. Okay. Where are we holding at this point in the Gemara? Tanchem says that someone that's lame is exempt from it because it says regalim. It says, but we need that to teach me balekabin, someone that with a prosthetic leg. So he says, oh, don't worry about that. We have another pasuk for that, which frees up the regalim to teach me what Rab Tanchem said. So now we're holding that Rab Tanchem has a good lima. Rava taught, what is the meaning of the verse that says, how beautiful are your feet in sandals, the daughter of princes? How beautiful are the feet of the Jewish people when they're going up to the Beis Hamikdash to celebrate. Bas Nadiv, the daughter of princes, Bite shel Avram Avinu shnikar Nadiv. Who's the prince? Not princes. A prince, Bas Nadiv, a prince's possessive S, daughter. A prince, the daughter of a prince. That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. So it's Bite shel Avram Avinu shnikar Nadiv, shneimar nedivei amim ne'asafu. the princes of the nations will gather. Elikei Avram, the nation of the God of Avram. Elikei Avram v'lei Elikei Yitzchak v'Yaakov. It's only the nation of the God of Avram. It's not the nation of the God of Yitzchak and Yaakov. Why is it only associating Hashem with Avram? Ela Elikei Avram she'etchil legerim. It says Avram is the first of the converts. It says he was commanded on Mila. I don't know what's the Gemara telling me by this. People go up to be Oile Regel associated with Avram Avinu. He had Mila. I'm not sure what the let me just see quickly if there's a shot here. Yeah, he says I have to look in Masech the Sukkah, which I don't have in this volume. Okay. Amar Rav Kana. Rav Kana taught Darash Rab Nassan Bar Menyumi Mishum Rab Tanchem. This is a famous Gemara.
So the children of Noah are not considered Abraham. Children of Noah, Abraham were different, right? At that point, separate. It's not.
Or Noah is 10 generations earlier.
Right. So that everybody after him isn't children of Noah when Abraham starts.
Right.
It's like two nations. It's them and it's us.
Right. Oh, that's what you want to say. That's when the Jewish people split away from the other people with Avraham Avinu.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to say. Okay. So Rav Kana says that Rab Nassan Bar Menyumi in the name of Rab Tanchem taught. Mai diksiv, what's the meaning of the pasuk? V'abar rekim b'mayim, that the pit was empty, the pit that they put Yosef in. It didn't have any water. It's implied when it says that the pit is empty. Do I not know that there's no water in it? If it's empty, then there's no water. So I wanted to tell me that there's only no water. But it has snakes and scorpions. Yeah, they always tell us that someone that's not studying Torah, it's not just that he's not studying Torah. He's also filled with narishkeit. That was the classic yeshiva Musar Shmuz. Okay. Tana Rabbanan. It was taught in the Brisa. Maisa b'Rabbi Yochanan ben Breika. B'Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma. Or Rabbi Elazar Chisma. There was a medrash that Rabbi Elazar went somewhere and they asked him to daven for the Amid. And he didn't know how to daven. So the people mocked him. He went back to his teacher, Rabbi Akiva, and he said, teach me how to daven for them and how to lead the service. So Rabbi Akiva taught him. And then he went back and he davened beautifully and he was chesem. Everyone became silent. He silenced everyone. So he was called Rabbi Elazar Chisma. Over here, though, it's either Chisma or Rabbi Elazar ben Chisma. Actually, in our Siddur, in the Pirkei Avos, there's actually a parenthesis there as well, when it says Rabbi Elazar Chisma. So, so these two, they went to visit Rabbi Yeshua. Yeshua is Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, the student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. It's the one that's his mother, they praised his mother, right? Amalahem, he tells to these two students, tell me what was going on in the study house today. We're your students. We drink from your water. Maybe that's the association here, the water in the pit. Nevertheless, there must be something that you came up with today in the study house. Rabbi Shua wasn't there. He says, Shabbos Shal Mi Haisa. Whose Shabbos was it? Whose week was it? Because we had in the Gemara Brachas that Rabbi Gamliel was deposed. from being the head of the yeshiva because he had insulted Rabbi Yeshua. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is why Rabbi Yeshua didn't enter. Nah, it doesn't make sense. Because what happened is they took, instead of Rabbi Gamliel, they took Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. And then Rabbi Gamliel apologized. So they took Rabbi Gamliel back also. So who was supposed to lead? So they gave Rabbi Gamliel 3 weeks, and he was the original head. They gave Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah 1 week. So they would always say, Shabbos Shalni. Whose week is this? Yeah, they joke in the yeshiva by us because we take turns going for Shabbos. So they joke, Shabbos Shalni. That's what the Bachram would say. Okay. So
Rabbi Yeshua, before you said there's this thing here that says in Peking.
Yeah.
Is that like the capital of China? It's exactly the same word.
Right. Shabbos of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was the Shabbos of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He says, what was the teaching? How do you know it was Haggadah? Apparently, yeah, there's a theory that every teaching came along with a Haggadah, with a Haggadah. You know, and when we have it now, we don't have it all exactly parallel, but there would be like a halacha, and there would be a story that came along with it. It would be like the Parsha papers, they would come with the story. So he says, what was the Haggadah? He's talking about Parshas Hakel. Ma Darashba, what was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah saying? So he said like this: gather the people, the men, the women, and the children. So he explained, he says, I know why the men come. They come to study. Nashim ba'im l'shmaya. The women, they come to hear, they come to listen. Taflam ba'im, but what are the children doing? It says, to bring reward to those that bring them. Look at Taisvus. This is a support why we bring children to shul. Yeah, my wife told me a pshat in this Gemara. I don't know, she heard it in a share or something, but it was like this: that who are the children supposed to stay with?
Yeah.
So. Yeah. So why does the Torah have to tell it to me? The command to bring them was litin tzchat. Why the Torah turns it into a mitzvah? You didn't have an option. You didn't have any babysitters. So why does the Torah have to tell me that you have to bring them? That's just to give you extra reward. It was something you were going to do anyway. Yeah, like Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zakas Es Yisrael L'Fikach Hebelem Torah mitzvahs. Some of the mitzvahs that we do, we would have done anyway.
It's just to bring your young ones, so like the parents get the schar.
Parents get the schar. Okay, Amar Lehem.
The children, I'm sure, get the schar. Well, if they're under bar mitzvah, I guess that
could be babies.
Yeah.
Amar Lehem. Rabbi Yeshua tells to these two students, Margolius Toivai Sibiadchem Mikashim Lavdim Meni. It's such a gem. And you were almost didn't tell it to me. You wanted to get it lost from me. I had to force you into saying what you learned. This is a beautiful piece. Vayidarash. And then he also said, Es Hashem emarta yem, es Hashem emircha yem. Emarta is a difficult word. It means praised or chosen. Or Hashem chose you and you chose Hashem. Amalem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Hashem tells the Jewish people, Atem asisuni chativa achas beilam. You made me unique in the world. And I make you unique in the world. You made me unique. Hashem is one. No one like Hashem. And I make you unique in the world. Yeah, we don't have the version Mikamcha ki Yisrael, like we say in Shabbos Mincha. Right? So Taisvus over here says, quotes a medrash. 3 testify about one another. Yisrael, Shabbos, and Hashem. Yisrael and Hashem, they testify about Shabbos, that it's a day of, the Jewish people and Hashem testify that it's a day of rest. Hashem rested, we rest. Yisrael and Shabbos testify about Hashem, that Hashem is one. Shema Yisrael. and I'm not sure how Shabbos does that, but yeah. And then Hashem and Shabbos testify about the Jewish people that they're unique. That's why by Mincha and Shabbos we say Ate Echad V'Shimcha Echad Michamcha Yisrael. That's what Tosfos says. Because it's Shabbos. What does that have to do with Shabbos? Ate Echad V'Shimcha Echad. Hashem is one. You're, and who is like the Jewish people? Because it's the Shabbos that's testifying. Tosfos says even though it doesn't really have to do with Shabbos, similar to like the other ones that talk about Yismcha Malchut Chuscha Veichel Hashemayim, the other parts of right. The other Shmonesers of Shabbos have much more Shabbos content. Okay. Afu Pasach v'Darash. He also began to teach. Rashi tells us that who's the he? Who's the he? Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. However, the comments here of Rabbi Tzal Ranchberg and Rabbi Hananel say that it's not Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that's speaking. It's now Rabbi Yeshua speaking. We'll see at the end. Rashi seems to fit better with the conclusion of this. He says, but the afhu, who's the afhu? I thought it was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah saying the whole time. Maybe it's just saying that means he continued to teach. He taught Divrei Chachamim kedarvainas kemasmeris netuim bali asufas nastim reyachad. The words of the sages, the words of the wise, are like a spur. Darvainas is a spear, but I looked it up. It's a spur. It's something on the shoe of the horseman that he kicks the.
Yeah. It's that spiky thing.
It's a spike on the bottom of the shoe that he uses it to get the horse to move.
Yeah.
Oh, we call that a spur?
No, it's a spur.
It's a spur, but the goat is on the bottom.
Yeah.
But the spur's on the side of the shoe.
Oh yeah. A goad.
Do they hurt a lot?
Is just a product, is a stick.
Right.
This is something that's attached to the shoe, but whatever, it doesn't matter. The masmaris and like nails that are embedded. The masters of gatherers that are given from one shepherd. Gemara says like this: why are the words of the Torah compared to a spur, to a goad? Just like the spur keeps the cow, or the goad, keeps the cow to the furrow, and through that it brings life into the world. It means it's able to plow, and so too, the words of Torah keep those that learn it off the path of death and on the path of life. Umar says, 1 second, maybe that means that the words of Torah can go to different locations, and I think that means that it could be adjusted according to the location. It says Talmud Leim Masmeres. It says no. It's the Aleph over here. Yeah. It says no, it's like a nail. The nails, they get less. I guess they rot inside the wall. It's not or maybe it means that the wall itself loses some of the area because when it gets pushed in, it gets pushed to the side.
Yeah.
It causes something negative. Talmud Leiman Atuin says no, it's planted. It's planted. When you study Torah, it increases. It doesn't make less. Okay. What does it mean, Bali Asufais? Masters of gatherers. These are the Torah sages that they sit together and in groups and they study Torah. Halal mataman valal matarin. These are saying that it's tamei. These are saying that it's tar. Halal oitzim valal matirin. These are saying that it's forbidden. These are saying that it's permitted. Halal paisam valal machshin. These are saying that it's it's invalid, and he's saying that it is valid. Shema Yomer Adam Hechani Lamed Torah Me'ata. Someone can say, how can I study Torah? The rabbis are all so many disagreements about everything. Talmud Laimar Kulam Nasna Miraya Echad. It's all from the same shepherd. Kel Echad Nasna. One God gave it to us. Parnas Echad Amran. One Parnas. It's a Parnas, like a governor has given them. Piadin Kol HaMaisim Baruch Hu, from the master of all actions. Blessed is he. Hashem spoke all of these words. Make yourself like a farcheses, which is a funnel or a hopper. You know what they put the grain into the mill. Acquire a heart to understand, to hear. The words of those that make impure and make pure, that forbid and that permit, that make invalid and that make valid. Rabbi Yeshua tells to the people, this is not an orphan generation if we have Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. This sounds like it was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that said it, because Rabbi Yeshua was telling them, oh, we're so lucky we have Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He said this beautiful interpretation that would fit with Rashi. How does it fit with Rabbeinu Hanano? Oh, so he would say like this, that this whole teaching was Rabbi Yeshua's teaching, and he concludes that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah that taught the old teaching, that taught the teachings before. That was how what Rabbi Yeshua wanted to say. Okay. Yeah. When it talks about the machlokes, and so it says that every generation has two stages. One is to chesed and one is gevura. Beis Shammai. And in order to understand the Torah, you have to be able to see both sides. You see both sides. You don't understand one side until you see the other side. Then you understand. Yeah, it's like marriage counseling. You know nothing when you hear one side. So you know less than before you started. So when you hear both sides, that's when you first start to understand what. So except for every once in a while, there's a generation that there's one great person that there's no one that's comparable to him. Moshe Rabbeinu. It says Halach l'Moshe Misinai. There's no machlokes about Halach l'Moshe Misinai. That we have the perfect pshat. Yeah, but every other generation, there's always a right and a left that helps us understand the full picture. So Chassidim and the Misnagdim.
So if you generalize that to the world at a whole, if you have a society in which only one view is controlled by, let's say, the press or whatever, like the Soviet Union or China, then it's missing something.
Right.
So in this country, they always had many, many opinions until recently, where everything is fact-checked.
Uh-huh.
So we only have Gevura, or maybe Chesed, I don't know.
Yeah, then you miss out on the full picture. No one understands even one side. Okay, now the Gemara asks, what happened over here? They had a good pshat. They had this whole thing about Hakal Esa'am and Nashima. Lama, why does it say that they bring the children? How come they didn't tell Rabbi Yeshua right away? You should have said it right away. Why did he have to nudge them? It says, Mishum Maisa Shahaya, there was a story. The Tanya, this was a sad story. It was a story, Maisa Rabbi Yossi ben Durmiskis, Shahalach Lakbel Pnei Rabbi Eliezer, probably. Belud. Rabbi Yossi ben Durmiskis went to visit Rabbi Eliezer. This could have been at the time when Rabbi Eliezer was in Cherem. You know, he was Shamuti, he was expelled. They took him out of the yeshiva because he didn't agree with the sages and he refused to let down his opinion.
Oh, wow.
It was about that oven, that if it becomes tummy or not.
Oh, a stone?
There was a certain oven It was made out of pieces.
Oh, an oven.
An oven.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, and they had a big argument about it. Anyway, this Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus goes to visit Rabbi Eliezer. Amalai, he says, what did they come up with today in the Beis Medrash? Amalai nimnu v'gamru. They took a vote, and they decided that Aman Umayyav ma'asrin meiser ani b'shviyas. The nations of Ammon and Moav, which is on the eastern side of the Jordan, of the Yarden, it's not really Israel. But it could be because there were Jewish people living there. It could be considered, it's right next to Israel. It could be the lands of Keni, Knizi, those three other lands, possibly.
It's like a colony.
It's like what?
A colony.
Yeah. So on Shvius, you don't have to give Meiser because they own the everything is ownerless.
In a lot, I think. Too.
Yeah, this could be like this, similar to that. So they took a vote and they decided that you have to give Meiser Ani to support the poor, give a tithe to the poor and Shvius, which on the Shemitah, which is similar to the 3rd year and to the 6th year. So it'd be 2 years in a row. 6 and 7 would be both Meiser Ani. Amalai, so Rabbi Lezer tells to Rabbi Yossi ben Damascus, says, Yossi, stick out your hands and catch your eyes. Pashat yadav v'kibaleinu. Sticks out his hands and his eyes popped out.
Oh,
wow. Bacha Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Lezer starts to cry. Omar, say the Shem lirev v'brisa leidiam. Secret of Hashem is to those that fear him. His covenant to those that know him. That make him known. Amar lai lechamar lem. He says, go back and tell them, al tachushlam inyanchem. You can forget your whole vote because you're correct anyway, but it has nothing to do with you. Kach mekublani me Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I heard from my teacher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, has to be Rabbi Eliezer, not Rabbi Lezer. Shoshama me Rabbi v'Rabbi me Rabbi, that heard from his teacher, which was Hillel and Shammai, that heard from his teacher, Shmai v'Avtalion. Hilchas Moshe Misinai, that there's a halacha Moshe Misinai, that Aman and Mayav Ma'asr and Meiser Ani b'Shviyas, that this is what they have to do anyway. Matam, what's the reason for this? Harbi Krachim Kav Shoel Mitzrayim. When the people came up from Egypt, they conquered many cities. But when they came back from Babylonia in the exile, the 70 years, they came back, they didn't conquer them. The first time they came into Israel, Israel became sanctified. But that sanctification was only there until they were exiled. Like Kitchelasalavi, it did not continue after that.
So the members living in Moab and Ammon would have to give Meiser.
So officially, it wasn't even Israel. They didn't really have to give anything. But why did they leave them? They could have went into those territories and they could have conquered them and they could have made, but they wanted it to be not considered Israel, so that they should be able to. Yeah. Yeah, that was from the first time when they came back. I don't know how the territories work. There's only a few tribes. So
the question is, did they contribute while they controlled the east side of the Jordan, or did they give Meiser?
Originally,
yeah.
I don't know. It's a good question.
I think they did.
Could be.
They sent their armies for
right.
The
right. So, but they left this so that the poor should have support on the Shemitah year. And where would this come from? So it would come from the other side of the Jordan. After Rabbi Eliezer relaxed, he said, that the eyes of Rabbi Yossi should go back to their place, and they went back. They popped them back in. Yeah. Okay.
We don't do that today.
What was he so upset about? Maybe because you see, the first sages said, "We're your students. Why should we be saying something?" And here, Rabbi Eliezer was the great teacher, And he just starts to say what they didn't like preface with. We're your students. We came to learn from you, right? Okay, Taner Rabbanan, start in a brisa. Izeu shaita. Who is considered an imbecile? Hayetzi yechidi balayla. Someone that goes out alone at night. Sounds dangerous. Walks the streets. Halan bebeis akvaris. Someone that sleeps in the cemetery. Bamakareas ksusin. Someone that tears his clothing. Itmar was taught a statement of Amirayim. Rab Huna Amar Adshiu Kulam Bavasachas. Rab Huna says that a person isn't a shaita if he does one of them. He has to do all three. Otherwise, we don't know. Like maybe he's got something. Doesn't mean he's like totally a shaita. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Even one of them is enough. Makes him a shaita. Yeah. So he's 66% normal. There's three things over here. Rabbi Yochanan says even one of them makes him. Okay.
So he's got to be homeless almost.
Right.
He sleeps outside. He has to be
ragged. Yeah.
Third one.
Well, he walks the streets at night. He goes out alone, and then he sleeps in the cemetery. Yeah. So, one second. The Gemara says, when is this machlekes? Clearly, if he tears his clothes as a crazy person, or if he walks around like a crazy person, he sleeps like a crazy person, then of course he's considered an imbecile. But if he's not doing it in a crazy way, then even all three, he was going to explain what he did. Torah, he needed shmatas in the house. It was an old thing. I don't know, had a stain on it. Talking about that he did it because it looks crazy. And he did it because there's a problem. He looks like an imbecile. Someone that sleeps in the cemetery. Maybe he's trying to get some sort of impure spirit on. He's not crazy. He's doing some experiment to see if he can get help him with his witchcraft or something. Someone that goes out at night. Maybe he's this could be like a depression of some sort.
Oh,
yeah, I looked this up in the dictionary. Gandripas, and the Jastrow quotes lycanthropy.
Yeah, lycanthropy.
Which I looked that up also. There's another dictionary. There's a wolf man.
Yeah, that's a wolf.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It says it's discussed in the Hebrew version. It's also not in English. It says these people, they were like werewolves.
Oh.
I looked it up also this morning. And I just seen it.
What about
there is a psychological category of people who eat their animals.
Oh, wow. 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 No, in Chassidus, it talks about that there's different nefesh bahamas. There's nefesh bahamas of a sheep. There's nefesh bahamas of a cow, of different animals. Okay, this is taking it too serious. Okay, v'makareas ksusai, someone that tears his clothing. Emer bal machshavasu. Well, machshavas sounds like he was like lost in thought. He didn't realize what he was doing, so he was, tore. So, but kivan devdino lakulo. What do you have? Do you know someone?
Okay, I'm counting.
A commentary. He interviewed a woman who thought she was a wolf, and they had this mini video of her running through the woods at night, this and that. And at the end of the show, it was like he was kind of making fun of her, but she really, she was right. And at the end of the show, he said to her, says, could you just do me a favor? Can you give me a howl? And she howled like a wolf.
Wow.
So I just
Wow.
said, people, some people.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Jesse Harris.
Wow.
You need a gong here.
Wow. So keep. I'm sorry.
The rendering of clothes. There's a style that kids wear.
Yeah.
The clothing all ripped.
Yeah,
Because
that
more
could have
than-
said. Could have had a good shot. Said it was the torn jeans. Like the. How do you know that it's because it's the crazy? Maybe it's the style. Someone could have said that.
Yeah.
But
It's crazy stuff.
even the Dino Lakulo.
They take nice jeans and yeah. No, they take nice jeans and they rip it up. It's like, it's nicer now. It's nice more.
That's imbecilic, in one way.
Yeah.
Even the Dino Lakulo, Havi Commission Nagach, Shor Chamar Gamal Vanasamud Lakal. We're on top of Daf Dalet. Since he did all three, even though each one he has an explanation for, but that's too many excuses. And it's like what happens is that if there's an ox that gores a certain type of animal, so it becomes a muad, after it gores 3 times, it has to pay full damages. Before 3 times, it pays half damages. After 3 times, it pays. But let's say it's only a muad for one type of animal. It only gores this. So then when it gores another animal, a different type of animal, so it's a half damages for this one and a full damages for the one that it's a muad for. Well, let's say it gores an ox, a donkey, and a camel. 1, 2, 3. It hits this one the first time. So let's say, obviously it's a muad for all animals. It doesn't have to do a ox 3 times, a chamar 3 times, and a gumel to become a muad for each one. We see that it's not particular about who it gores. So it becomes a muad for everything. It's not picky.
He's an all gore. That's my pronunciation.
Sometimes it's beyond.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. That's a really smart ox.
Oh, yeah.
After
Jonathan says that's a really smart ox.
Yeah.
Okay. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says.
Does you see stand up in court and say, my client has temporarily become a shota? The judge understands what he means.
Only from Judge Ike.
No, I went my house and I lost my house in Surfside. So the lawyer, it was for foreclosure. So the lawyer was this from guy. He wanted to say, how could you do this to the rabbi? Anyway, the judge says, tells the lawyer, he says, we have rules in place, so I don't have to look at the rabbi in the face and have rachmanas. It was an old Jewish judge.
What happened?
I moved there.
Yeah.
Okay. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa says, Ishmiele Rav Huna Hadatanya. If Rav Huna would have heard the following brisa, Izu Shaita Zamamid Kamashanois Leavi Hadabe. We have a brisa that clearly states that even if he does one thing, he's considered a shaita. Shaita is someone that loses everything that you give to him. Doesn't say he needs 3 different things to do. Okay. He would have changed. Rav Huna would have changed his mind. Rav Huna says you need all 3. Here we see that one thing is enough. Everything you give him, he loses. Ibailo, you have a question. Umar says, 1 second. The 3 things that Rav Huna said was, first of all, he goes out at night alone. He sleeps in the cemetery and he tears his clothes. Well, tearing his clothes is similar to someone that loses everything that you give him. So maybe that's the one factor that Rav Huna would have changed his mind, and Rav Huna would have said that if he tears his clothes, he's a shaita, even if he doesn't sleep in the cemetery and go out at night. But what about if he only sleeps in the cemetery? Is that the same thing as the Brisa? Or maybe Rav Huna would have still said that sleeping in the cemetery isn't enough unless you have the other ones. Umar says, take it. It's a question we don't have an answer for. I remember that, yeah. Yeah.
Where else you go in those days?
Right. Yeah. They would have an explanation. Why didn't the Gemara say that over here? Could have said, the Gemara says, Kadesh Tishal Avrach Tuma, who the Kavod. Gemara could have said his wife kicked him out. Right. Okay. Now it says that a tumtum and androgynous skulu, they're exempt from being a regal. Tana Rabban was taught in the Brisa Zachar. It says, Yira kol zachorcha. Now, all the males need to appear in the temple. When it says males, so lahait yasanashim, obviously not the women. Zachorcha, your males, lahait tumtum androgynous, that's also excluding someone that's not perfectly a male. Mm-hmm. Someone that's a tumtum, that it's like unclear, undeveloped, and an androgynous someone that has both signs. Kol zechorcha, all the males, l'rabbi sesektan, and that's already an inclusion. The first ones were exclusions. This is include. It's including also the children. We have to see soon because the children I thought were exempt. We'll see. Amar Mar, we'll go back to analyze. Amar Mar is analyzing a Tanaic statement. It says Zachar, the male, Leitias Anashim, it's excluding the women. Halamalikra, you need a pasuk for this. Michti, 1 second. Let's see. Mitzvah say Shazman Gramo. It's a positive command to go to the temple. That's time bound.
Right.
It has a limit, a time limit. Women are always exempt from it. You don't need a special pasuk. Every mitzvah that's a mitzvah say to exempt the women, it has to say only males. We know a rule that women are exempt from any time-bound mitzvah. So it says Itzra. I could have thought that I learned it from Hakel. What happens by Hakel? When everyone has to gather in the 8th year to hear the Torah reading from the king, we said that the women come and the children come, everyone has to come. Over here also 3 times a year, maybe they have to come. So Afkan Nashim Chayavas Kamash Malan, it comes to teach us this pasuk that they're exempt. And I was like, could have understood differently. Amar Mar, we go back to analyze another part of that price. It says Zechorcha, you are males. Laiti Tumtum Androgynous. It says 1 second. Bishlam Androgynous and androgynous. That he has both signs. It's necessary to tell this to us. The androgynous, he has the male organ as well. So we could say, well, he's a male. Should be chayiv. So Kamash Malan, it's coming to teach us the Beria Bifnei Atzmahu, that it's not considered that he's both male and female. He is a separate type, which is, this is a third gender, which is androgynous. Yeah. It's a Beria Bifnei Atzmahu.
In the census, do we have that category? Male, female.
There's like 50 different ways to identify.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a third way. Ella tumtum speko. The problem with the tumtum is that it's just underdeveloped. It's not a different. It's not. It's just a doubt. It's so underdeveloped that we don't know if he's a male or female. It's a doubt. So this is an interesting question. The Gemara asks us sometimes. When we have a doubt, does the pasuk need to tell me what to do when there's a doubt? The pasuk tells me what to do. You have a doubt, so figure it out. And if it's a Torah law, then go strict. If it's not, Hashem has no doubt. So the Torah doesn't really have to tell me what to do. It doesn't tell me every time there's a doubt what to do. The doubt, you always go strict if it's a Torah law, and you go lenient if it's a rabbinic law. So, Amar Abaya, the truth is, we don't have a doubt. We know that this is a male. So then why are you saying that he's exempt? Because the actual, the organ itself, the bris area, that was not developed. but we know he's a male. And because it wasn't developed, he's considered exempt. So it's a male that's exempt. Okay.
Just like children, sort of. Well, it'll go.
Yes, we'll see. Now comes the children. Amar Mar, Kol Zechorcha, all your males. The Rabbi says Sektanim is coming to include the children. 1 second. But our Mishnah, except for a deaf mute, an imbecile, and a child. He is exempt, not obligated. Here, Kol is telling me the obligation. Amar Abaya like Kasha. Abaya says we don't have a problem with this. Kan bekatan shegiel lachinach, kan bekatan shleigiel lachinach. Maybe this is Abaya and Rav Papa do this a lot. Whenever they have contradictions or arguments or something, they know how to answer it up. This is this case, this is that case. They like resolve problems. Rav Papa is a student of Abaya. This one is talking about a child that reached the age of education. This is a child that hasn't reached the age of education. That's why he's exempt.
Was a bar mitzvah d'oraisa?
So the age of bar mitzvah is halach l'meshem misina. How do we know 13? Well, we know that he's an ish at that age. We know it from Shimon and Levi, but I think it's also halach l'meshem misina. Yeah, there's a discussion about
the training of mitzvot to be before the age.
Yeah, you have the training before,
So
but the
decide.
obligation only comes at bar mitzvah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really suggest-
So here it says 1 second. If you reach the age of education, it's only rabbinic. Education is a rabbinic law, not Torah study. Torah study is biblical. To teach a child Torah is a biblical law. To train him to do mitzvahs is rabbinic.
Wait, say that one more time.
To teach him Torah is biblical, but to have him practice. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they're both the
We
same
just learned
thing.
it before. So we learned it in the Mishnah because now we're quoting that. The Gemara says, you're right. It's only rabbinic. And cross macht balmad. Are you quoting a pasuk? The pasuk is just to support. It just helps you. Kol zechorcha, to include it. That's not really teaching children because children are only obligated rabbinically. It says, Vela krola mayasa. So then what are you going to do with the pasuk? It says, look at the acherim. It's coming to tell me what acherim says. Acherim is Reb Meir, usually. It says like this, others say, I'm a kamitz. Kamitz is a someone that gathers manure. Rashi says that he does it. It helps with the tanning process. Dog manure. Mitzaref, someone that refines copper. Matzaref nechayshas. Baborsi, a tanner, p'tur min haria. These people are exempt from Riyah, because it says all your males, only someone that would be allowed to walk with everyone else. But because of his odor, no one would want to walk with him. So these are exempt because of the odor that goes around them. Yeah.
People who happen to have this.
No, they have this job which makes them smell. They can't get rid of it. The smell. Yeah. The tanner. Today.
Chimney sweeps.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Wow. I don't know anybody. Do they still have people like this?
That collect manure.
And do they still smell the tanners? Yeah.
Yeah. So it doesn't come off. It probably comes off in the shower.
When you tell them for work that they think no one's gonna want to be around you.
Uh-huh.
Today you
Uh-huh.
have a shower, but back in the day you didn't have to really have it.
Right.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, yeah, no.
Go to the mikveh. Husband, go to the mikveh.
A male. Yeah.
So,
Like we know nowadays, there's all these mixtures, so it's sometimes they get twisted and end up in the that they can end up on that will link X chromosome. Woman that's XX, and then it's because causes androgenization. So if apparently it's not just an American,
Right.
letters of the
Right.
alphabet and everything.
So,
It's genetically.
right. So the Gemara would not follow, based on this, the Gemara would not follow if it's an XX or a XY. That they're just by the external.
So it's just like with fish's scales. You can see the scales. That's why eels
Uh-huh.
You also have scales?
never really want to get close.
Anything, the Gemara says, anything that has scales has fins.
That's right.
Catfish.
Snapper. Is that what the Gemara says?
Catfish has fins, no scales.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh no, Rashi says Yaakov Torah the other way. That's how it is. God showing off.
Is there any examples of something that's not visible to the naked eye that the Torah considers? That's because it is visible. That's only because it is visible. If it wouldn't be visible. Right. So I'm saying the Torah really only considers things that are visible. Yeah. Right. Right. Right.
Isn't chametz like it doesn't apply the 1/60th rule to chametz?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, you're saying because that's not right. That's correct. What is that? Oh. Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. The next Gemara discusses the women and the men and the slaves that are not freed. It says we understand why the women don't have to be Oila Regel or don't have to send the sacrifice, because, as we said before, it says Kol Zechorcha, all the males. And that excludes the women. Zachar excludes the women. But how do we know that the slaves are exempt? Amar Ravuna Amar Kra. Ravuna quotes a pasuk. El Pnei Adain Hashem. Mishein le'ela Adain Echad Yatzazeh Sheyesh le'Adain Acher. It says they have to see the face of the master, or be seen by the master, by the face of the master, which the master is Hashem. Now, this excludes this one that has Adain Acher, that has another master. So he's exempt. Now the Gemara challenges what Rav Huna said. Ha, lama likra. Why do I need Rav Huna to quote a pasuk? Michti. Kol mitzvah shisha chayevas be'eved chayev ba. Anything that a woman is obligated, the slave is obligated as well. Mitzvah kol mitzvah shein ish chayevas be'en eved chayev ba. The Gemara la yishu. We learn we have a Gemara somewhere else that says that we learn that obligations of a slave are exactly the same as of a woman. So if a woman is exempt, the slave is exempt. So why do I need a Spinea Adain Hashem that only someone that has one master but not a slave? We met. So I'm a Ravina. Ravina says, we said that before. In the first page we were quoting, we asked Hakol Asuye Mai. Remember on the first page we said, who are you coming to include? That's Chayev. So we said, someone that's half slave, half free. We said, but what do we do with Ravina that says you're Chayev? Right? Ravina says that you're Chayev. This is Ravina. Dekanami, you see, now we're saying that Ravina says that you're Pater. Hakal, the Mishnah said that you're Chayev. Ravina says that you're Pater. How's it going to include it according to Ravina, which is this piece right here? 1 second, I skipped the line. Dekanami, I'll prove it to you. What does it mean that the slaves that aren't free? If you say that they're not free at all, so just say slaves. What are you telling me that they aren't free? It means that they're not totally free. My Neo, who is that? He's going to be exempt. Okay. A lame, blind, sick, and an older person. Tanarabban, all of those are exempt from being a regal. Tanarabban is taught in the Brisa. Regalim, it says Shalish Regalim Tachigli Bashana. 3 times a year you should celebrate. Regalim, but it means 3 times, or it means feet also. Prat Labali Kabim. This is coming to exclude. Actually, before we said Pa'amim was coming to exclude this. Okay, this opinion holds. It's excluding Bali Kabim. It's excluding people that have a prosthetic leg. Davar acher, another pshat, regalim, that means feet. Prat lechiger lechayla lesuma lezaken l'sheni yachalal spragalav. Anyone that can't walk on his feet. This is a lame and a sick person and a blind person. The blind person really has another exemption, or an older person, because we said that's why the blind. Oh. And someone that can't walk on his feet. What are you telling me? Can't walk on his feet. Who are you coming to include? You already said lame and sick and old. Amar Rava says lasuyim mefanke. It's coming to include someone that's delicate. When he gets to the harabayas, he's going to take off his shoes. He's going to have to walk barefoot. He may not be able to do that. So he's going to be exempt. The ksiv, as the pasuk says, Kisavi liris panai, when you come to see my face, who asked you of this? Rames chatzeri, to trample my courtyard, which means that when you go to the Beis Hamikdash, you're not allowed to wear shoes. Yeah. Tana, started in the Brisa, Arova Tami Pitur Minaria. Someone that's uncircumcised and also someone that's impure is exempt from sending their sacrifice. Obviously, they can't go to the Beis Hamikdash, but maybe they should send it with someone else. So it says, we understand why a tummy person is exempt. It says you will come there and you will bring there. Anyone that's able to come, is able to bring. This means to bring the sacrifice. Anyone that can't come doesn't have to send it. But what about someone that's not circumcised? Where do you get that from, that he doesn't have to send the sacrifice? This is Rabbi Kiva the Marbe La'aral Ketame. He has a verse that he says that an aral and a tame are compared. The Tanya Rabbi Kiva ish l'Rabbi says aral. When it says a man, any man from the descendants of Aaron that is tame, that's coming to include. It says that double expression is coming to include also someone that's an aral, someone that's uncircumcised, has the same status as someone that's tame. That could be, yeah, that's a whole discussion here in Taisvus, if it's referring to that he wasn't able to because of health reasons, or it's because he chose not to. Yeah, it's a discussion here. If
it was because of the health reasons that we've said.
Right.
Nowadays, is that person allowed to be disabled person? Because he's not the one for the Jewish.
Right.
His descendants were
look it up. I think so. Yeah. Taner Rabbanan.
I have the same question about a number of these categories. Doesn't hear or doesn't see what that happens within a lot.
Right.
See.
Right. So, Uh-huh. Oh,
Disqualifying qualifying.
yeah, it all starts here. Taner Rabbanan, start in the Brisa. Tamei patim min ariyah. Someone that's tamei is exempt from sending the sacrifice. He has to be able to come to the temple. Otherwise, if he can't come to the temple because he's impure, he doesn't have to send the sacrifice either. Rabbi Yochanan ben Davai Yomer. Rabbi Yochanan, the son of Davai, he says, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda, the name of Rabbi Yehuda. Summa bachas meinov, patim min ariyah. We quoted this Gemara before. Someone that's blind is exempt from coming to the temple and sending the sacrifice. Just like he sees with two eyes, just like Hashem sees him with both his eyes, Hashem should see him with both of his eyes. It means clearly. Perfectly. 2020.
Both eyes.
Rav Huna, Kimati Lahaikra, Yira, Vachi. When he comes to this pasuk, he cried. He says, Amar, he says like this, Eved Sharabi Mitzapa Leilaraisai. There's a servant that the master is hoping to see him, hoping to see the servant. Yisrachik Mimeno, then he goes away from him. You say, when you come to see my face, who asked you to come? To trample my courtyard, the prophet says, Yeshaya. So he's saying at first Hashem wants to see us, and then look at our situation. Rav Huna, Kimati Lahaikra Bachi. Rav Huna again, right? When Rav Huna came to this pasuk, he cried. It says, V'zavachta shlamim v'achalta sham. You'll sacrifice peace offerings and you'll eat there. Eved shirabi mitzapa lechal al shulchana yisrachik mimenu. A servant that his master is hoping to see him, then he goes away from him and he doesn't want to see him. Hashem says, what do I need all of your sacrifices for? Rabbi Eliezer, when Rabbi Eliezer came to this pasuk, he cried. He says, the brothers couldn't answer him because they were shocked. If a rebuke from a flesh and blood, from Yosef, he tells him that he's his brother. It doesn't really say a rebuke, but they felt rebuked. Rebuke from Hashem for sure. Rabbi Elazar kimati lahaikra again. Fachi. When Rabbi Elazar comes to this pasuk, he cried. It says, Vayemer Shmuel al Shaul. Shmuel says to Shaul, this is when by the witch, by the when they he didn't know what to do before the battle. If he should go to the battle, so he finds a witch
with a Malek
that could. It wasn't a battle with the Malek. It was Plishtim or something. There was a Maleki, someone that was there, but then he goes to this witch to see if he should go to battle. What's going to happen? Shaul.
Yeah, he brings it up.
Yeah, he wasn't allowed to, but he was so afraid. He didn't know what to do. So,
You're not allowed. What happened to Shaul?
No, yeah, Shaul had killed all of them out.
Yeah, he killed all the witches.
And then they found one left, the mother. So, Lama here Gastani Lahale Seisi. Shmuel says to Shaul, why did you anger me to bring me up from the grave, to bring out his spirit? Shmuel HaTzadik, when they brought him up, they said, why are they calling me? They thought he was going to judgment. It says, if Shmuel was afraid of going to judgment, for sure we should be afraid. Shmuel, what are you talking about? That he was afraid of judgment? It says, the woman tells to Shaul, Elikim, Reisi Olam, I see them coming. My God, I see them coming. Now, when it says Olam, I mean, it's a plural. Tremash means he's two people coming. You're only calling Shmuel. Who's the other person? Chad Shmuel, V'idach Daza Shmuel, V'aisi L'Moshe Badei. One was Shmuel, another one was Moshe Rabbeinu, because Shmuel was nervous when they were rising him up. He ran to get Moshe. He says, maybe they're calling me to judgment. Kumba Adai, come with me. The Lekim Masa Dexivus Virais Lekiamti. He went to get his lawyer. Says there's nothing in the Torah that I didn't fulfill. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Wow.